Hello, this is Rachel with the Otago Prattville Public Library, and today I want to show you guys how to make sensory bags. These bags in particular are really calming, especially for children. They can also be used as early literacy tools, and they're pretty fun to make too for the grown-ups. So I figured I would show y'all what we're doing. The first thing you're going to need is heavy-duty gallon bags, Ziploc gallon bags. It doesn't matter if they're name brand or not, but if you get the bigger ones, they usually last a little better. Get at least 2 bags per bag that you intend to make, because we're going to double bag them. And then we're also going to go ahead and reinforce with some packing tape. So be sure to have some packing tape, some scissors, some construction paper or colored paper, some food dye. I have glue sticks. I've got some pony beads and glitter, some glitter glue, some miscellaneous little marbles and things like that, and some markers. And then I also have some yarn. I'm actually going to make 2 sensory bags today, so I'll show you 2 different types that you can do. I've got a jar and some wet glue for mixing my yarn in when I go to make seaweed, because we're going to do an ocean theme today. I have paper towels for cleanliness purposes, and then I have vegetable glycerin as my liquid base today. If you want to skip a couple steps, or if you have some of that fun blue bubble bath at home, for example, that you can get really cheap at the store, the children's bubble bath, you can purchase that, and that absolutely works instead of this, and then you don't need to use the food coloring either. So our first step today is going to be to cut out our paper, and I cut a big sheet of this bright teal with a little wave at the top, and then I cut a medium sheet of my darker blue with waves at the top, and then I cut a little sandbar out of this goldenrod yellow to be at the bottom.
And the reason I'm doing so many layers is partially to add dimension, and it's also so that, especially for the sandbar at the bottom, so that I can secure my seaweed that I make to the bottom. And I'm just using a little bit of glue for now, just to kind of hold the place. These are going to be stuck inside of the plastic bags later, so you don't have to worry too much about them being super secure. There we go. So now we have our little ocean scene. I have a couple markers here, and I'm going to create some little seaweed greenery looking guys. Just some varying heights and widths so it looks a little bit more realistic. And I'm finished with my markers. I'm going to take this out of the way. Now I'm going to use, this is an experimental technique, so we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to use a little bit of this fluffy yarn to try to make some seaweed. So So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it, and it's just a basic fringe yarn.
I cut my yarn into 4 even pieces, and then I'm gonna kind of trim them to be different heights. And I think we'll put them all kind of in one corner just to really add dimension. So I'm gathering my ends up here. I'm going to tie a little knot just to keep them all together. And you'll notice that this fringe yarn bits and pieces will kind of come off and try to escape. That's okay, you can just toss those aside, throw them away. So here we have our little plant. I want this seaweed to have a kind of greenish look. So I'm going to use this light green, yellowish green glitter and some of this liquid glue. Now I'm going to layer a little bit of glitter in here. This is just a random jar that I found that I'm going to use to contain my glittering glue. And then a little layer of glue. Shake it around just a little bit to incorporate it. And then I'm going to hold on to the knot part and poke it around in the glittery glue with this chopstick. I might position this right on my paper here right away so that I can make the strands of the seaweed branch out how I want them to. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I tucked it in. I'm going to use some of this leftover glitter glue on my stick to secure that other end of the sandbar. And then we're going to go ahead and start spreading out our seaweed tassels of fringes so it looks a little bit more organic. Before we start assembling the actual sensory bag, I'm going to add a couple more seaweedy elements just with this wet glue. Using this darker green glitter to kind of tie it in a little bit more. Perfect. So go ahead and let this dry. So while we are letting our little seascape dry with all its glittery glory, we're going to set this aside and let it dry. And I'm going to show you the other type of sensory bag. This one is a little bit more bulky, so you don't want to put too many bulky items in your sensory bag because it can cause the bag to break more easily. But if you are using larger or more bulky items, you'll want to be sure that they're smooth or have round edges. So I'm going to use these little sea glass pebbles. And I have a few different varieties of them here. Got some beads mixed in with it. I'll leave those in, why not? It can be like a treasure hunt. I've got some pennies that I'll go ahead and use as well. Now, if you don't have these plastic gems, these are just little acrylic pretend diamonds that are all sorts of colors. If you don't have some of these, you can always use regular beads, like these tiny beads that are somewhat translucent. Those would make a good addition as well. So before I add my solid elements, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing my glycerin with the coloring. I'm going to take my Ziploc baggie, So this is probably about 2 cups, maybe a little more, maybe 3. But basically, you just want enough liquid, whether it's vegetable glycerin or you could use hand soap, although I realize you need to be using that for washing your hands right now. Or if you have the bubble bath, go ahead and use that. You just want enough to give a couple of inches at the bottom of liquid. So we've got that in there. That looks good. And we're going to add 1 drop of green, just to kind of tie the colors together a little bit better. And then using my chopstick, I'm going to do some of this blue because I don't have any of the blue in the dropper. I'm going to get a healthy glob of the blue. I'll start stirring that in there. And I'm going to close the bag most of the way and squeeze out a lot of the air. And that way I have more control over the liquid inside. And I can really squish it and get the color integrated into the gel. So you can do this squishing part to integrate the colors really for as long as you want. This is the fun calming part. But our next step is going to be to add our solids, some glitter, and good stuff like that. But I've got this very cool teal flake glitter that I'm going to put a little bit of in here. Just open back up, and then we have really fine mica powder. Again, you can use crushed up eyeshadow that you don't want anymore if you don't have mica powder, or if you do have mica powder, a teeny little bit goes a long way. So I just put like a pinch in there, and that's going to add a really cool shimmery effect. And then we'll add our solid elements. And for this version, I'm just going to dump them, sprinkle them right in. So it's, like I said, like an underwater treasure hunt. One more time, we're going to zip up the top most of the way.
Squeeze out as much air as we can this time. Getting really, really persnickety about it this particular time because we want to be able to prevent air bubbles that could cause the bag to break later. So I'm pressing out the air slowly, carefully through that top corner. And if there's a couple of air bubbles, that's no big deal, but you can kind of chase them out with your fingers. Perfect. And then zip it up. And we're almost done with the second sensory bag.
So the first thing I would recommend doing with this particular one is reinforce our inner bag with tape right away. The final touch for our treasure hunt bag, this can be done in a couple of ways actually. So I'll give you two examples. One is you can just stick it in another Ziploc, just the whole thing, stick it right in. Again, I like to put the logos on the same side so that it's covered up properly, but also so that you can write your child's name on the center of the bag if you'd like, on the little logo / label area. And we're just going to tuck it in one side at a time and we'll wiggle it in there. So version 1 is just like this. You squeeze out all the air, you zip it up, and you've got a fun treasure hunt sensory bag.
Option 2 is to, in your second bag, incorporate a piece of paper, and you can write a letter on it for a name. So I'm Miss Rachel. I'm going to put a nice big R. And I'm going to put that behind the gooey ooey bag, and do the same thing, squish out all the air and close it. And then it's like extra hidden treasure, because as your child is exploring through the different textures and the squishiness and the different colors, they can see the letter, and they can even trace it with their finger to help those early writing gross motor skills. So that's a fun activity. If they're a little bit older and they're working on their fine motor skills, you can also have them rearrange the pebbles on the inside and see if they can make the pebbles and the pennies line up with the shape of the letter to create a 3D effect on the letter as well. So this is one example of
dry enough by now. So we're going to do a very similar concept. We're going to stick our illustration inside of a bag. And this will keep the paper dry nicely down in there. Differentiate our seaweed a little bit more. And then we'll simply stick this bag inside of another bag, which we will fill with our food coloring.